Okay, so please introduce yourself, your film, and maybe just a little touch on how you brought this film to be.
I'm Jay Woelfel. I did The First Time Machine. I wanted to say a lot of our post-production is here. Mateo D'Souza, who did the sound mix, is here. Don Adams, who is the editor, is here. And my wife, Christy, who was kind of before, during, and after. For Christy's birthday, we go out to this place in the desert, and she went and did spa stuff, and I figured I would just read a book. So I had this collection of Fredric Brown short stories, and I read this, a couple of them, and I read this story, First Time Machine, which is a page and a half, or a page in some anthologies. And I finished it, and I was kind of like, this would make a really good short film. I've been doing features for years. I used to do shorts. I was like, but why would I make a short film? And then I thought the original, I thought, well, what if the time traveler is the only white guy? And then like the rest of it all kind of just developed from there. I'd not done a science fiction film or a film with a largely black cast. And the lead, Anthony Baldessare, and the professor are actually best friends in real life. And Anthony is the son of an actor I've worked with for decades. So this is kind of an interesting step back into short films with the son of the guy who's been in most of my movies. And Fredric Brown's a really cool short story writer, by the way.
Maybe you could expand a little bit more on how you put your team together, some of your challenges, what you think were the highlights of what you were trying to get across.
So I'm from Ohio originally, but I've lived and worked out in Los Angeles forever. And Fredric Brown actually was originally born in Ohio. And so it seemed like an Ohio movie because I wanted to go back to that sort of farm that was in the story. There was, what intrigued me almost most was him finding a big stick. Then he finds a big stick. So I was like, that's one line in the story. That's like 2 minutes. That's like the coolest part. I think I can, because you're telling something visually, you know. It's like, well, what is he doing? And so anyway, Jose Cardenas, who had been a TA for me when I was in college, works at Bowling Green University in Toledo, Ohio, near Toledo. For us, it's Toledo. It's Bowling Green. And so he went around. He read the script and really liked it. As I need a lab, a place where the doctor in the story. And in my script, it was like his garage, like he had a garage lab. And he's like, well, I'll go to all the chemistry labs. So we got this fantastic chemistry lab. And then my wife's father, Jim, and that's shot in Ashtabula in Kingsville, Ohio. And they're famous for covered bridges, which is actually cut from this version of the movie. But he found us the waterfall and all this stuff. So I knew Anthony, and Anthony knew Wes. And the rest of the cast I had to cast remotely. So I got a woman who cast a lot of theater, Lillian Piles, who also cast New Jack City years ago, to cast it. And so I couldn't meet the actors for the first time I've ever cast a movie where I couldn't be there. So I sent the whole script. I said, just give me your best people. I don't want 5 guys who all look alike. They all need to be very different people because this is a short movie. And for the auditions, here's the script, but I just want them to essentially like do a monologue based on the character. So that's what they did. And the line about, I want to smoke a blunt with Malcolm X, that was just part of it. He had a whole list of things. I want to follow the North Star with, you know, all this stuff. So that came from that audition. And some people who didn't get cast came up with some great lines that ended up in the movie too. So that's something I recommended because the actors all loved it. You know, they're like, just, you're the guy, so talk to us. And Wes, who did the doctor, like basically shot the beginning of the movie. He was like, had his own camera going, here's the time machine. And then the time machine had to be built here. And I found a guy who was really into doing that. He does big props for Star Trek and all these kind of things. And he was like, is it a mad doctor? What kind of mad doctor? And he was really into the fact that he was sort of interacting, because he was usually they go, yeah, give us a ray gun, and you ask any more questions and you don't. So we went back to Ohio to shoot the movie. The exteriors were shot first. That was 2 days of shooting him wandering around. And then the lab was the final day in Bowling Green, which is the other side of Ohio. So we get there to shoot the lab. It's on the 3rd floor and the elevator is broken. So luckily, I'd never met any of these actors. So for 90 minutes, we had something to do for another 90 minutes before we could start shooting. So we shot till like 2 a.m. to get that. So that's, and then all of the effects are done in camera except for a few obvious ones. That was a whole additional day of shooting.
Does that include those really tight, super close-up micro? And there's some lens distortion situation.
There's lens, there's bendable mirrors. One of the DP bought a cheap lens and took a hammer and knocked a hole in it. But yeah, there's flexible sort of mirrors and stuff which give you this kind of watery, organic feel. And that thing I think is called a whirlpool, that lens, which bends the whole exterior of the stuff. But yeah, that was all done practically. But that was like the 4th day, so it's a 4-day shoot. Yeah, my budget was not including film festival entry fees. Yeah, which is an important line item in your budget. It was about $12,000.
Wow.
The cast and the time machine almost cost the same amount of money, which because that guy, because somebody who was supposed to build the time machine didn't build it. I had like 4 days, and it's like, so he did it, and he had to ship it because I couldn't take that on an airplane. He goes, I knew you'd be shipping this, so I built it to be bulletproof. I mean, that thing is made out of real steel.
They would
I couldn't
confiscate
take
that.
it on a plane. I was gonna rent this nuclear bomb, which this prop house had here in town, and I was like, and he goes, you can't take this on a plane. I was like, yeah, I know. And he didn't want. He goes, you're not gonna ship this out of state, are you? I was like, thanks for your bid. But I figured like, well, it is called the First Time Machine, so if it's half my budget to have the time machine, that's worth it. I mean, it's like the actors and the time machine. And I'd already took, that was kind of how that worked out. The one quick story I want to tell is Fredric Brown is a writer who doesn't really describe characters. And so the only character with any description in terms of physical description was the grandfather, who was supposed to be a redheaded kid. So when I had the casting, I was like, whatever I do, we got to have a redheaded kid for the grandfather, because that's the original author, that's the only thing he mentioned. And so auditioning redhead people, a couple people were like offended, but the guy we cast, Sam, I was like, oh, thank you for doing this, because some redheads didn't want to be this guy and be a redhead. And Sam goes like, I don't know what it is, but I always get cast to be the bad guy. And he sells his hair, which I know another redhead who does that. They let it grow out and they sell it or donate it because red hair is such a thing.
And you're getting more exclusive.
Yeah, and I read another I've read many Fredric Brown stories now, and usually he doesn't talk about people. And there's another story where this one woman gets killed, and she's very specifically a redhead. So I'm like, okay, what's going on here? So I got to talk to Fredric Brown's son. I was like, okay, what's the deal with the redheads? Is this some in-joke? Does he really hate redheads? Because blah, blah, blah. The son goes, I have no idea. Lost to time. I must say, the camera gear I got for free, and the locations were all free and stuff, so it would have been a lot more.
Okay, one last round of applause for our filmmakers. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you, Glendale Arts and GIFF. Thanks for coming out.